My name is Mitchell Rawlings, and 3 years ago my ex-wife Bethany took everything from me. Our $22 million Texas ranch, my trucking company, even my German Shepherd Duke. The divorce papers were still warm from the printer when she sent me that text. "You'll never recover from this, Mitch. You were always too soft for the real world." At 33 years old, I went from owning 42 semi-trucks to driving strangers around Dallas in a 10-year-old Honda Accord for Uber. From sleeping in a master bedroom that overlooked 500 acres of Texas hill country to crashing in a one-bedroom apartment where the air conditioner sounded like a dying animal. From being daddy every morning at breakfast to being every other weekend on a court document. But here's the thing about rock bottom. Sometimes it's exactly where you need to be when fate decides to flip the script. One Thursday night, a passenger left her purse in my back seat. When I returned it to her office, her assistant took one look at my face and nearly dropped her coffee. "Oh my God," she said, her voice shaking. "You're James Holloway's son, aren't you?" I'd never heard that name in my life. My father supposedly died in a refinery accident before I was born. At least, that's what my mother Eleanor had told me every time I asked about him growing up. "That was your father?" the assistant continued, pulling out her phone with trembling hands. "He worked here in 1987. He died 3 months ago." She paused, looking me straight in the eye. "He owned 75% of this company." What she said next didn't just change my life. It revealed that everything I thought I knew about my past was a carefully constructed lie, and the man who'd watched me lose everything from afar had been planning my comeback for 33 years. My ex-wife was right about one thing. I never did recover from losing everything. Instead, I discovered I was heir to something much bigger than a trucking company, and the price my father paid to give it to me was 33 years of silence. This is the story of how returning a forgotten purse led me to inherit $847 million, and why I still drive Uber once a month, searching for other forgotten souls who might be one ride away from discovering who they really are. I built Rawlings Transport from nothing. At 22, I bought a beaten-up 1998 Peterbilt with $60,000 I'd saved working oil rigs since I was 18. The truck had almost 400,000 miles on it, but the engine was solid, and that's all I needed. My mother Eleanor watched me sign the papers at the used truck lot in Fort Worth, worry creasing her face. "Mitchell, your father would be proud," she said, touching my shoulder. It was one of the few times she ever mentioned him. According to her, he'd died in a refinery explosion 2 months before I was born. No body was recovered, no life insurance. Just gone, leaving her 7 months pregnant and alone. I named the company after myself because I had no one else to honor. Rawlings Transport started with me sleeping in that truck cab, taking any load that would pay, running routes from Texas to California, sometimes driving 20 hours straight. Coffee and determination were my only partners. By 25, I'd saved enough to buy a second truck and hire my first driver, an old-timer named Cecil who taught me more about the business than any MBA program could have. The growth came fast after that. By my 30th birthday, Rawlings Transport operated 42 trucks with 60 drivers on payroll. We specialized in refrigerated goods, running premium routes for organic food distributors. The money was exceptional. Annual revenue hit $12 million in our best year. I'd married Bethany when I was 27, when the company had just 15 trucks. She was a paralegal at the firm that handled my contracts, beautiful and sharp, with auburn hair and green eyes that seemed to see right through the bullshit of the trucking world. "You're going places, Mitchell Rawlings," she'd said on our first date. "I can always tell which clients will make it big." We bought the ranch when Bethany was pregnant with Colton. $22 million for 500 acres of pristine Texas hill country, complete with a 7-bedroom main house, horse stables, and a spring-fed lake. It was excessive, but Bethany insisted we needed to project success. The mortgage was massive, but the trucking company was printing money. Colton arrived first, then Gracie 2 years later. Those early mornings were golden. I'd wake at 5, make coffee, and watch the sunrise paint our pasture orange while Duke, our German Shepherd puppy, tumbled around the kitchen. Bethany would come down with the kids, Colton chattering about his toy trucks, Gracie still rubbing sleep from her eyes. We'd eat breakfast as a family before I headed to the Rawlings transport headquarters I'd built on the edge of our property. "Daddy's going to work," Colton would announce like it was the most important news in the world. Everything changed when Bethany's cousin Trent moved to Texas. He was a financial advisor from Chicago, all smooth talk and expensive suits. Bethany started having lunch with him, coming home talking about diversification and wealth optimization. She said I was too focused on the trucks, not seeing the bigger picture. "You're sitting on millions in equity, Mitch," she'd say over dinner. "Trent thinks we could leverage the company assets better." I should have seen it coming when she started working with him officially, setting up an office in our guest house where they'd review our finances. Late-night strategy sessions became common. She'd come to bed talking about how other trucking company owners were selling out to private equity, making fortunes overnight. The divorce papers were filed on a Tuesday. I came home from a 3-day route inspection to find them on the kitchen counter right where we used to eat breakfast as a family. Bethany had taken the kids to her mother's in Houston. Duke was locked in his kennel, whimpering. The accusations in the filing were devastating. Financial mismanagement, emotional neglect, creating an unstable home environment. All lies, but Trent had connections. His fraternity brother from SMU, Judge Harlan Pike, was assigned our case. My lawyer, a decent man named Robertson, looked defeated from day one. "Pike and your wife's advisor golf together every Sunday," Robertson told me quietly. "I'll do my best, but you need to prepare yourself." The trial was a massacre. Despite my clean record, despite never missing a school play or soccer game, despite building a multi-million-dollar business from scratch, the court awarded Bethany primary custody. She got the ranch, controlling interest in Rawlings Transport, and $15,000 a month in support. I got every other weekend with my kids in a mountain of debt. Standing outside the courthouse, Bethany approached me one last time. Trent stood behind her, his hand possessively on her lower back. "You were always too trusting, Mitch," she said, not even pretending to be sad. "Business requires sharks, not goldfish. Trent's going to help me turn Rawlings Transport into something special." They dissolved my company in 6 months, selling the trucks for quick cash, firing drivers I'd worked with for years. Cecil called me crying the day they let him go. I was already driving Uber by then, living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Arlington where the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor's TV through the bedroom wall. My credit was destroyed. My savings were gone. At 33, I was starting over with less than nothing. 3 months into driving Uber, I developed a routine that kept me sane. Wake up at 5, drive the airport runs until noon, grab a gas station sandwich, then work downtown until midnight. 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Sundays were reserved for my kids, though Bethany had started making excuses about why they couldn't come. "Gracie has a birthday party," or "Colton's not feeling well." I knew she was lying, but fighting her meant more lawyer fees I didn't have. That Thursday evening in August, the temperature hit 103 degrees. My Honda's air conditioning was struggling, and I'd already apologized to 3 passengers about the heat. When I pulled up to Dallas Love Field's arrival zone, I saw her standing at pickup point 7. Francine Oakley, though I didn't know her name yet. She wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than I made in a month, her silver hair pulled back in a perfect twist. She was arguing with someone on her phone while juggling a leather briefcase and designer luggage. "The board needs those projections by morning," she said sharply into her phone as she slid into my back seat. "Tell Harrison if he can't deliver, I'll find someone who can." She gave me the address without looking up from her phone. Ridgemont Industries, downtown. Take Mockingbird to Central, not the tollway. I knew Ridgemont Industries. Everyone in Dallas did. They owned half the commercial real estate in the city, plus manufacturing plants across Texas. The building itself was a 50-story glass tower that reflected the sunset like a pillar of fire. During the 35-minute drive, she never stopped talking, rattling off numbers and deadline demands that made my old trucking logistics seem simple by comparison. "Driver, I need to stop at my office for just a moment," she said as we pulled up to the building. "Keep the meter running. I'll be right back." She rushed out, leaving behind the sharp scent of expensive perfume. I watched her disappear through the revolving doors, her heels clicking against marble I could see even from the street. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Other Uber drivers would have left, but something made me stay. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe I just didn't want to deal with hunting for another fare in the rush hour traffic. After 30 minutes, I glanced in the back seat and saw it. Her purse, a black leather piece with gold clasps sitting on the floor behind the passenger seat. She must have put it down while handling her phone and briefcase. I reached back and picked it up. It was heavier than expected. Through the partially open top, I could see her wallet, car keys, and several folders marked "Confidential Board Review." I faced a decision that shouldn't have been difficult, but somehow was. I could drive away with the purse, turn it in to Uber's Lost and Found, and let their system handle it. That was the smart play. No interaction with wealthy clients who might complain about anything to protect themselves. But my mother's voice echoed in my head. The same words she'd said when I was 8 and found $20 on the playground. "Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's watching, Mitchell." The security guard at Ridgemont's lobby desk looked at me like I'd wandered in from another planet. My Uber driver shirt and jeans stood out against the marble and chrome, like a coffee stain on a wedding dress. "I'm returning a purse," I explained, holding it up. "My passenger. She went upstairs about 30 minutes ago. Francine Oakley." His eyebrows shot up. "Miss Oakley, the CEO." "I guess she left this in my car." He made a quick phone call, then another. Within minutes, the express elevator opened and a woman in her 40s stepped out. She had sharp features and intelligent eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in seconds. Her nameplate read, "Denise Vance, Executive Assistant." "You have Miss Oakley's purse?" she asked, reaching for it. "Yeah, she left it in my Uber." I handed it over, expecting that to be the end of it, but Denise didn't move. She was staring at my face like she'd seen a ghost. The color actually drained from her cheeks. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mitchell? Mitchell Rawlings?" She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging in slightly. "Rawlings? Your mother's name is Eleanor? How did you know that? Oh my God," she breathed, and I could see her hands starting to shake. "You're James Holloway's son, aren't you? You have to be. You look exactly like him." "I don't know any James Holloway. My father died before I was born." Denise looked around the lobby, then pulled me toward a side corridor. "Please, come with me. There's something you need to know. I've been waiting for this moment for 3 years, ever since Mr. Holloway started calling the office, asking about Eleanor Rawlings and her son. That's impossible. My father's dead." "Your father died 3 months ago," she said firmly. "But not 33 years ago. James Holloway worked here in 1987. He owned 75% of this company through various holdings, and he spent the last 3 years of his life trying to find a legal way to contact you without violating an old court order." My legs felt weak. The corridor seemed to spin slightly. Everything I thought I knew about my life was unraveling in a corporate hallway that smelled like fresh carpet and filtered air. Denise led me into a conference room on the 3rd floor, away from the executive levels. The walls were lined with photographs of Ridgemont Industries through the decades, groundbreaking ceremonies, ribbon cuttings, men in hard hats shaking hands. She locked the door behind us and pulled out her phone. "Before I say anything else, I need you to see this," she said, scrolling through her photos until she found what she was looking for. It was a scanned image of an old company newsletter from March 1987. "That's from our archives. Look at the second row, third person from the left. I took the phone and nearly dropped it. The man in the photo could have been me, transported back 36 years. Same strong jaw, same dark eyes, even the same way of standing with his weight slightly on his left foot. The caption read, James Holloway, Junior Executive, Finance Division. That's impossible, I said, sinking into a leather chair. My mother told me my father died in a refinery accident. She had newspaper clippings. Your mother was protecting you, Denise said gently, sitting across from me. James Holloway was very much alive until 3 months ago. He died of liver cancer at Presbyterian Hospital. I was one of the few people at his funeral. She pulled up another photo, this one recent. An elderly man in a hospital bed, thin and pale, but those eyes were unmistakable. They were my eyes, Colton's eyes. Tell me everything, I said. Denise glanced at the door, then leaned forward. James started here in 1985, straight out of UT Austin. Brilliant with numbers, everyone said he'd run the company someday. But in 1987, he made a fatal mistake. He fell in love with Christina Ridgemont, the founder's daughter. Thomas Ridgemont's daughter? The old man was a tyrant. When Christina got pregnant, he went ballistic. Gave James 2 choices: disappear forever, or face criminal charges he'd manufacture. Embezzlement, corporate espionage, whatever it took. Thomas Ridgemont owned judges, politicians, the whole system. James took the deal to protect your mother and you. But the refinery accident? A cover story. Thomas Ridgemont arranged everything, even had fake newspaper articles printed. Only a few copies, just enough for your mother to have proof if anyone asked. James had to sign papers agreeing never to contact you or Eleanor, never to come within 1,000 feet of either of you. My hands were shaking now. So he just walked away? He never walked away, Denise said firmly. He changed his last name to Holloway, his mother's maiden name, and started investing every penny he earned back into Ridgemont Industries through shell companies, offshore trusts, anything to stay hidden. He knew Thomas would destroy him if he found out. But James was patient. He spent 30 years quietly buying shares from disgruntled board members, from Christina when she needed money for her divorce, from anyone who would sell. 75%? 75.3% to be exact, worth approximately $847 million at current valuation. When Thomas Ridgemont died in 2015, James could have come forward. But your life was stable then. You had your trucking company, your family. He didn't want to disrupt that. But then the divorce happened? Denise nodded. He knew everything. He hired investigators to watch the proceedings. He saw what your ex-wife did, how she destroyed your company. He wanted to intervene, but his lawyers said any contact could invalidate the inheritance structure he'd built. Texas law is complex about parental abandonment and inheritance claims. If he'd reached out, Bethany could have claimed a share as your spouse during the contact period. I stood up, pacing to the window. Below, Dallas traffic crawled through the evening heat. 3 months ago, while I was driving strangers to the airport, my father was dying 15 miles away, holding shares worth nearly $1 billion that he couldn't give me. There's more, Denise said. Your father left very specific instructions with Northbridge Legal. They're the most powerful estate law firm in Texas. Carlton, Northbridge himself has been waiting for you to surface. James knew that eventually fate would bring you here. He had profiles on every executive at Ridgemont, knew their routines. He calculated that someone would eventually end up in your Uber. That's insane. That's love, Denise corrected. A father's love that had to find a way around impossible obstacles. He couldn't contact you directly, but he could make sure that when the universe finally connected you to your inheritance, everything would be in place. She pulled out a business card. Carlton Northbridge, call him tonight. Tomorrow morning at the latest. There's a board meeting in 3 weeks, and as the majority shareholder, you need to be there. I don't know anything about running a corporation. You built a trucking company from 1 truck to 42. You know business. Besides, Francine Oakley is a good CEO. Your father trusted her to run things. You don't have to fire anyone or change anything, but you do have to claim what's yours." I took the card, feeling its weight. What about my mother? Did she know he was alive? That's a conversation for her to have with you, but James sent money every month through an anonymous trust. How do you think she afforded your college when she was working as a grocery store clerk? Everything clicked into place. The mysterious scholarship that covered my tuition at Texas A&M. My mother's insistence that I never investigate where it came from. Her tears every time I asked about my father, which I'd assumed were from grief but now realized were from carrying this secret. "Denise, why are you telling me all this?" "Because James Holloway was a good man who deserved to know his son. Because I've watched this company for 20 years, and I know what he sacrificed to build his stake. And because Francine Oakley needs to know that the majority shareholder isn't some faceless investment fund anymore. It's you. James Holloway's son has come home." The offices of Northbridge Legal occupied the entire 40th floor of Republic Tower, all dark wood and leather that whispered old money and older secrets. I'd barely slept after calling Carlton Northbridge at 10 the previous night. His assistant had scheduled me for 8 the next morning, and when I arrived, Carlton himself was waiting in the lobby. "Mitchell Rawlings," he said, extending his hand. He was 70 if he was a day, with silver hair and eyes that had seen every possible permutation of human greed and generosity. "I've been expecting you for 3 years. Your father said you'd find your way here eventually. He had tremendous faith in fate." The conference room he led me to had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Dallas. On the polished table sat 5 bankers' boxes and a single white envelope with my name written in shaky handwriting. "Read the letter first," Carlton said quietly. James insisted. I opened it with trembling hands. "Mitchell, my son. By the time you read this, I'll be gone, and you'll know the truth. I've watched you from a distance your entire life. I was there, sitting in the back row, when you graduated from high school. I was across the street when you married Bethany, wishing I could warn you, but knowing you had to make your own mistakes. I watched you build Rawlings Transport with the same determination I used to build my stake in Ridgemont. Your mother was the love of my life. Leaving you both was the hardest thing I ever did, but Thomas Ridgemont would have destroyed you both if I'd stayed. He had photos manufactured, documents forged, witnesses ready to say I'd embezzled funds. My choice was simple: disappear and let you live, or stay and watch him ruin you to punish me. I turned my exile into purpose. Every share I bought was for you. Every late night studying market reports, every proxy battle I fought in shadows, every dividend I reinvested instead of spending on the life I wanted, it was all for this moment. You're not inheriting just money, Mitchell. You're inheriting 33 years of a father's love that couldn't be expressed any other way. Your ex-wife was wrong. You're not a goldfish. You're my son, and you're about to become one of the most powerful men in Texas. Use it wisely. Keep Francine as CEO if she'll stay. She's brilliant and honest. Don't let the money change who you are. You were a good man when you had nothing, when you built something from nothing, and when you lost everything. That's the man I'm proud to call my son. One more thing. Duke didn't run away. I had someone I trust pick him up the night before your custody hearing. Check Denise Vance's backyard, your father, James. Carlton gave me a moment to compose myself, then opened the first box. The documentation is extensive, but here's what matters. You own 75.3% of Ridgemont Industries through various entities that are now consolidated under your name. Current market valuation is $847 million. There's also a personal estate in Vail worth $12 million, a collection of classic cars in storage worth $3 million, and liquid assets of approximately $15 million. This can't be real. It's very real, and there's something else you need to know. Your ex-wife's attorney, Trent Morrison, contacted us yesterday. News travels fast in certain circles. He's suggesting a reconciliation might be in everyone's best interest. I actually laughed. Of course he is. There's a board meeting Monday morning. As majority shareholder, you'll need to attend. Francine Oakley has been preparing for this transition. Your father informed her 2 years ago that his heir would eventually surface. My phone buzzed. Bethany. I let it go to voicemail, but she immediately called again. Then came the text. Mitchell, we need to talk. I heard about your father. Trent says we should discuss the children's future financial security. Please call me back. Mr. Northbridge, I said, putting my phone away. I want to petition for full custody of my children, today if possible. Carlton smiled, the first real emotion he'd shown. James predicted you'd say that. We've already prepared the filing. Judge Pike won't be handling it, by the way. He recused himself yesterday when we filed a judicial review motion regarding your original divorce proceedings. Seems there were some irregularities in how assets were valued and divided. How did you know to file that? Your father had investigators documenting everything. Every lunch between Trent and Judge Pike, every forged financial document, every hidden asset your ex-wife claimed didn't exist. We were just waiting for you to claim your inheritance so we'd have standing to act. Monday morning came fast. I stood in the elevator of Ridgemont Industries wearing my only suit, the one I'd worn to court during my divorce. But this time, Denise Vance was beside me and she was smiling. Your father would be so proud, she said as the elevator climbed. The boardroom was intimidating, all chrome and glass with a table that could seat 30. Francine Oakley sat at the head, but every eye in the room turned to me when I entered. She stood immediately, walking over to shake my hand. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced to the room, I'd like to introduce Mitchell Holloway, our new majority shareholder. It's Rawlings, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the silent room. Mitchell Rawlings. I built my own name before I knew his. I'll honor both, but I won't erase what I earned on my own. Francine smiled. Of course, Mr. Rawlings. We've prepared a presentation on the company's current status, unless you'd prefer to address the board first. I thought about all the nights driving Uber, all the passengers who treated me like I was invisible, all the times Bethany had called me weak. Just one thing. My father built his stake in this company over 33 years. He could have cashed out, disappeared, lived like a king somewhere else. He didn't. That tells me he believed in what Ridgemont Industries could be. Miss Oakley, you've been running this company well. I see no reason for that to change. I'm not here to fire anyone or transform everything. I'm here to be a good steward of what my father built and to make sure this company continues to thrive. The room exhaled collectively. Francine's relief was visible. Thank you, Mr. Rawlings. Your father said you'd be pragmatic. He did? He called me monthly for the last 2 years, talking about you. He was very proud of how you handled losing everything. He said any fool can succeed with advantages, but only a real man can fail with grace and keep driving forward. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of our new ranch, watching Colton teach Gracie how to throw a football in the same spiral I'd taught him years ago. Duke raced between them, barking at the ball, his German Shepherd energy fully restored after spending those dark months in Denise Vance's backyard. She'd taken care of him like he was her own, knowing someday she'd return him to his real family. The custody hearing had been swift. Without Judge Pike's protection, Bethany's case crumbled. The new judge, Harriet Chen, reviewed the financial documents Carlton Northbridge submitted, including proof that Bethany and Trent had hidden assets while claiming poverty during our divorce. They'd stashed nearly $3 million from the trucking company's liquidation in offshore accounts. The forensic accountants found it all. Full custody to Mr. Rawlings, Judge Chen had ruled. And, Mrs. Rawlings, you should consider yourself fortunate that Mr. Rawlings isn't pursuing criminal fraud charges. Bethany kept the original ranch, but it was mortgaged to the hilt from her and Trent's spending sprees. Last I heard, they were trying to sell it, but the market had shifted. Trent's financial advisor license was under investigation by state regulators. Turns out he'd been running similar schemes on 3 other divorced women, promising them wealth management while draining their settlements. I bought a smaller ranch, just 50 acres outside of Weatherford. It was perfect for us. Close enough to Dallas for my work with Ridgemont Industries, far enough away to raise kids with room to breathe. The house was modest, 4 bedrooms instead of 7, but it had something the mansion never did: peace. My mother, Eleanor, finally told me the complete truth over Sunday dinner at the new house. She made her famous pot roast, the one she used to make when I was young, and she was stretching every dollar. "James contacted me once, right after you were born," she admitted, tears rolling down her weathered cheeks. He was sobbing on the phone, begging me to understand. Thomas Ridgemont had shown him photographs, fake ones, that made it look like James had been stealing from the company for years, bank records that didn't exist, witnesses who would swear they saw him commit crimes. James said if he didn't disappear, Ridgemont would have him arrested and then come after us too. "You should have told me, Mom." "How could I? When you were 5 and asking why you didn't have a daddy like other kids. When you were 15 and angry at the world. When you were 25 and building your company. There was never a right time. And James made me promise. He said someday, when the old man was dead and you were ready, the truth would find its way out." The college money? Every month, $5,000 appeared in an account. The trust document said it was from a deceased relative's estate. I knew it was James, but I couldn't prove it, couldn't trace it. "That money put you through school, Mitchell. Your father never stopped providing for you, just in the only way he could." Rawlings Holloway Logistics launched 3 months after I claimed my inheritance. I started with 10 electric semi-trucks, hiring back every driver Bethany and Trent had fired. Cecil called me crying when I offered him the position of head driver trainer. "Thought I was done for, Mitch," he said over the phone. 68 years old, who's going to hire me? "Family doesn't leave family behind," I told him. Diego, the single father who'd been my most regular Uber passenger during my driving days, became our operations manager. He'd been an executive in Mexico before immigrating, but his degrees didn't transfer. I'd learned his story during those long airport runs, how he was working 3 jobs to support his daughters. Now he ran our Dallas terminal with the precision of a Swiss watch. Francine Oakley and I developed an unexpected friendship. She'd been terrified I'd fire her when I took control of Ridgemont Industries, but I meant what I said at that first board meeting. She ran the company brilliantly. I attended monthly board meetings, reviewed major decisions, but let her do what she did best. My focus was on the trucking company, on building something with both names on it, honoring both the father I never knew and the man I'd become without him. "Your father would love this," Francine told me during a break at a board meeting. "He always said the measure of a man wasn't what he accumulated, but what he built for others." Once a month, I still drive for Uber. 4 hours, usually Sunday mornings when the kids are at their activities. I donate every penny to a fund I established for divorced fathers fighting for custody. The Mitchell Rawlings Foundation has helped 43 men so far, guys who lost everything in court and just needed someone to believe their story. Last week, I picked up a passenger from Lovefield, same spot where I'd picked up Francine that life-changing night. He was young, maybe 25, wearing a cheap suit and carrying a worn briefcase. He spent the ride on the phone, trying to coordinate job interviews while his car was in the shop. "Rough day?" I asked when he hung up. "Rough year," he admitted. "But I'm building something. My dad always said the only way out is through." I handed him my real business card when we reached his destination. "Call my office Monday. We're always looking for hungry people who understand that success isn't about where you start, but how you handle the journey." His eyes widened when he read the card. "You're Mitchell Rawlings? The guy who owns Ridgemont Industries? Why are you driving Uber?" "Because every passenger has a story," I told him. "And sometimes a forgotten purse in the back seat can change everything." Sometimes being at rock bottom is exactly where you need to be when fate decides to flip the script. Bethany sent me one final text last month. "I underestimated you." I didn't reply. I was too busy teaching Colton how to change the oil in a truck while Gracie painted a portrait of Duke in the garage. My mother was in the kitchen making cookies with Diego's daughters, who'd become like cousins to my kids. The sounds of family filled every corner of our smaller, perfect home. You see, Bethany was wrong from the beginning. She said I'd never recover from losing everything, but recovery was never the point. The point was discovering that my father had spent 33 years in exile, building an empire he couldn't claim, just to ensure that one day, when I needed it most, I'd have the resources to protect what really mattered. The money didn't save me. The truth did. The truth that James Holloway loved me enough to disappear, that Mitchell Rawlings was strong enough to survive, rock bottom, that sometimes the inheritance that matters most isn't stocks or real estate, but the knowledge that someone believed in you enough to play a 33-year-long game just to see you win. Every morning, I drive past the cemetery where my father is buried. His headstone reads, James Holloway, father, investor, patient man. I brought Colton and Gracie there last week. They left drawings on his grave, pictures of our new house with all of us standing in front, even Duke. "Was Grandpa a good man?" Gracie asked. "He was a patient man," I told her. "And sometimes that's the best kind of good there is." The Rawlings Holloway logo is on 40 trucks now, with plans for 100 by next year. But success isn't measured in fleet size anymore. It's measured in Saturday morning pancakes, in Duke's excited barking when the kids come home from school, in my mother's laughter echoing through a house built on truth instead of secrets. Rock bottom, I learned, isn't a failure. It's just solid ground to build something better. And sometimes when you think you've lost everything, you're actually about to find exactly who you were meant to be. My name is Mitchell Rawlings, son of James Holloway, and this is my story. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been knocked down and wondered if you'd get back up, hit that like button below. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that rock bottom isn't the end, it's often the beginning. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more incredible true stories of redemption, unexpected inheritances, and the kind of plot twists that remind us life is stranger and more beautiful than fiction. Remember, sometimes the biggest fortune isn't what you inherit, but what you choose to build with the pieces of your broken life. Until next time, keep driving forward, because you never know which passenger, which moment, which forgotten purse might change everything.